Ah, Key Studio, the wonderful studio that brought you such things as Dead Fox Waifu, Crying Finish Lines, Our Bus Trip of Happiness, and the important lesson that don't fall in love with your girlfriend or she'll die. Comes Cute Girls Doing PTSD. Yes, Key Studio is back with another classic that will make you cry because that's their only goal, is to make people cry. But this time with robots again, because we need more robot girls. Prima Doll is a series that aired in the summer 2022 anime season. I am here to give my review of the series, so let's jump right into it. Prima Doll opens up in the Imperial capital, where just a few years before they were at war, but now we have peace. And even though the tools they used in that war, the automata and the mechana, are to be decommissioned following the war, we follow one particular Nagitoma who is reconfiguring these tools to be servers at their cafe, the Black Cat Cafe. And though this seems to raise eyebrows to some people within powers, it seems like Nagi has a little bit of a pull there. When the series starts, we follow the perspective of Haizakura, one of these automata that has been repurposed and is now waking up within the Black Cat Cafe. She doesn't really know why she's there, she's looking around, she's kind of confused, but at the same time, she's pulled quickly into the group of these automata and given different chores to do around the Cat Cafe. And what we kind of get from her perspective is these different stories of each one of these automata and what they went through during the war and how those scars from the war itself still carry on with them. These were once weapons, now experiencing a different life, serving people instead, which seems to be the overall purpose that Nagitoma wants. We have the lead Karasuba, who once fought in the war alongside Nagi himself. We have Gekka, who was a sentry, her whole role was to go out and look for forces ahead of the team and come back and report. We have the story of Hokoboshi, who was really well known for her singing, but unfortunately after the war has pretty much lost her voice. And this continues so on and so forth as each of these girls are introduced to the cast and we get an idea of what they've gone through. All the while, unfortunately, we have this stirring in the background of the war being kicked back up. Certain factions seek to kind of threaten the peace that has now been established. And yes, unfortunately, these girls will get dragged into it. So my thoughts on Prima Doll. This is easily one of the least favorites of the Key series for me, for sure. I love Clannad, I love Air, I love Canon. I cannot get enough of Key. Despite the fact that we tell ourselves don't touch Key properties because they're just gonna make you cry, it seems like everything is built up to just seeing cute girls cry and then somebody probably dying and then you bawl your eyes out. That's Key. And for some reason, I keep getting back into them and back into them and back into them. But honestly, despite the fact that there is a lot of really good, emotionally impactful moments in Prima Doll, I will admit that there is a flaw in this series, and that's really around the fact that the pacing sucks early on. It really does feel like they are trying to get through these stories as quick as possible. Every single episode is a single story over and over again. It wasn't until later on in the series where it feels like it starts to go on the track of one single story and really flesh it out. But for a good half of the series, it was basically trying to rush through as many of these girls as possible. So you don't get to settle into the story well enough and into the characters well enough to really get that impactful ending to it. While they're still emotional, and I think that's really important to do in the character designs themselves, and yes, seeing cute girls cry is always difficult to watch, it is a bit frustrating because I feel like the impact of those moments could have been so much better. And yes, the driving force of why these stories are so tragic is because you are dealing with the scars of a war itself. I joked about it at the beginning, but it's technically true. This is about PTSD and cute girls. Yes, they're technically robots, they're automata, but it quickly kind of established the idea that these girls do have emotions. They do express things. Despite the fact of like some characters like Gekka even says that she can't have emotions, they have emotions. So despite them being robots and technically portrayed as being robots, they do have emotions, they do feel things, they get frustrated, they get angry, they get emotional, they cry, and yes, they feel sorrow most of all. One of the earlier stories is Yugiri, and Yugiri is somebody that was once with a family, and they went off to the war, and the war itself broke them. It made them unable to retain memories, and thus she doesn't remember anything about her previous family, and she can't retain new memories. And so this will be an aspect that will thus harm the child of that family. And so she chooses herself to step away from the child. Again, if she was just a robot, she would accept being around the child because she was ordered to. But in this case, she feels very selfless and wants to step away from the child to save the child pain. And again, this is echoed with other stories. Pretty much every single one of these girls, every single one of these automata is damaged in some way by the war itself. Whether it be they supported the people, whether it be that they supported the military itself just to see the military itself die, They failed their mission to protect the military, and the military died, or they were discarded in the war itself, and they were only to be saved by Nagi. Again, these stories each individually are strong, but again, they don't give enough time to really set in and let you feel the impact of what they're going through. And I think for a lot of people, that's going to be a mixed feeling. Some people are going to be fine with the stories being a lot quicker. Some people are going to want to really settle in with the situation more than the story gives you. And some people might find the simplicity of the stories themselves to be enough impact and actually be easier to consume. Me personally, I'm kind of mixed on it. I like the quicker stories, but at the same time, I acknowledge the idea that Key has pulled off a lot better storytelling with more time. With all that said, though, the character designs, the visuals, I absolutely love. I love these character designs so much. They look fantastic. This is from the character designer that did Kinano no Mosaic, Yui Hara, and they did a phenomenal job. But more importantly is the style itself. All these automata are basically dressed up in kimonos. It kind of makes them stand out, and you kind of wonder how they ever stood on a battlefield. But even more so in the current time, they stand out so much. They're beautiful, they're elaborate, they're vibrant. And so when you see these girls walking around the city, a city that's kind of a post-war setting, all the browns and plain nature of the world that they're walking through is very much so contrasted by the vibrant colors they wear. And yes, technically their hair colors. They stand out as a foreign thing, which kind of solidifies that aspect of them being automata and not real people. They look foreign to the environment that they're in. And this is accented even more so in the idea that one thing they do in the current time is sing. One thing that Haizakura wants to do early on is kind of get them all together to sing for the people, to show them that the automata are not bad. Again, the idea in this world is that they're supposed to be decommissioned. All the mechanica and all the automata are supposed to be decommissioned. So if they can show them they're not dangerous, they're not just weapons, it might change the minds of people. And so that becomes a huge focus for Haizakura and the rest of the Black Cat Cafe. In the end, do I recommend it? Yeah, sure. If you're looking for, again, some more tragic stories, really heartfelt moments between these characters. They're not all tragic stories. Some of them have a smile at the end of them. I highly suggest it. Now, for people that are huge fans of Key and more longer running series of Key, you might be a little disappointed here, but I think you're still going to get that same feel and that same flavor that you'll usually get from Key. Again, lovable characters that eventually will break your heart. I will say that it's kind of a different take on your typical Key series, mainly on the idea that it's more focused on automata that are technically single-focused. Again, yes, they technically do have emotions, they have desires, they have a driving force within themselves, but they are still automata in the end. So they don't necessarily think and act like normal people do. They're not going to seek to go on their own and leave Nagi behind. They're going to focus on working for Nagi. But I think it's in that contrast that every now and then for certain stories, you'll get a little more sense of the idea of breaking from the norm, and that focus on duty for one side or the other of this particular battlefield. Also, because they're not humans, it's a lot less focus than your typical Key series on love and tragedy through love. It's more about, again, the war, duty, the tragedies of the war itself, and the hardships of mankind itself destroying itself. But at any rate, that's my review of Prima Doll. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the series if you're going to be checking it out. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button to get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I greatly appreciate if you consider supporting us on Patreon, our tips link, or super thanks button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.